Good evening, Hub Nation. Welcome to another episode of 5 Elements of Success Player Development Series. I'm Roger Nick, your host and founder of the Junior Golf Hub. We've got a great show for you this evening. We're really excited about having Dr. Brant back and talking more about the mental off-season training that we're going to talk about later on in the show. So really excited about that. As always, we want to make sure that we're keeping this interactive. Send in your questions, comments, concerns, 5 Elements at the Golf Performance Center, or also YouTube chat. Make sure we get those in. We want to help you achieve your greatness, and also it would help us be better at this. So again, as always, pop quiz. Here's a quote. Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. Who said that quote? If you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Who said that quote? Later on in the show, we're going to reveal the answer and also the winner of that beautiful mask that Stephanie Malloy is modeling for us there with the Golf Performance Center logo. So excited to give those out. So please get those answers in so we can draw those names out of the hat. All right, thanks so much. This week, again, Dr. Brant coming on the show, GPC clinical psychologist, talking about off-season goal setting, mental game fundamentals. So really excited about that. As always, got Tyler Campbell here to my left, on the physical performance coach, and also Dennis Hillman is our director of coaching here at the Golf Performance Center. I forgot who you were because I was out last week, so I just really forgot about it. So anyway, we're really, again, excited about the show this evening. So before we get into this, let's talk about last week.
Absolutely. Well, we missed you in studio last week. You were tuned in, though. I think it worked out pretty well.
I got a little tan last week.
Yeah, down in Florida playing some golf. No, it was a good efficient trip.
It was a good efficient trip. Play some golf.
Excellent. So. Well, we were excited to talk about rotation last week. We talked about how much rotation is too much. Is there such a thing? We gave you some physical assessments to assess your rotation, both in your lower body and your upper body. And then we also talked about the importance of the quality of your rotation and really making sure that as you practice this off-season, you're rotating properly. Too often, our compensations creep in based on our physical limitations, and we're kind of fake rotation, if you will. So make sure you're rotating properly. Tune into last week's episode. They're all available on juniorgolfhub.com/5elements to learn a little bit more about is rotation. Can you have too much of it?
Can you? You're rotating.
Tune into last week's episode.
You're rotating a lot on the chair. Anyway, so Dennis, this week we're talking about the mental game and talking about what we're going to do off season. And I know, 3 weeks ago the audience had an assignment, but you kind of went through that with the junior golfers here at Golf Performance Center. What was that assignment, and what did you guys do for goal setting?
Yeah, it was a strengths and weakness analysis that Dr. Brant assigned you guys. So we've been really taking our time here this year in particular, getting ready for the off season and going through, what is a good process for goal setting. What is what does a good goal look like? So, obviously we know we want it to be an intrinsic goal, something that inspires you, but there are other characteristics, like the SMART goals, concept really helps you inform you how to create a good goal. So we've been taking our time really the last month or so. We've been focusing on just getting to the point where we have good goals for the off season.
Yeah, and not only from the golf perspective, but we need that from the physical perspective as well, because
Absolutely.
Again, it sets up a lot of things that they may be trying to do on the golf side of things. So how do you?
Well, we started this academy year back in September. Setting goals after we went through our full PDI assessment to start the year, kind of got our baseline. Excuse me. And for those at home, you guys have the PDI self-assessment that you can use to help yourselves develop some baselines. So once the kids, develop those numbers, we just looked at which ones they wanted to attack. And so we just, physically, we just finished our second testing period. Golf-wise, we're still in the middle of it, but saw some really cool progress from some kids. Our facility plank record was broken, at least in the competitive group. Chase Perlman, who was on our show back in the summer, working on some bunker shots and some short game stuff, he took his plank last year from 1:47 to a 5-minute and 36-second plank just last night or 2 nights ago. So really kudos to Chase, doing a nice job. But again, I think one concept that we use physically to help ourselves achieve goals is really what we refer to as progressive overload. It's a pretty fundamental concept in our world, strength and conditioning, in the sense of, if you start off, maybe doing 5 to 10 push-ups, and that's all you've got in the tank. Getting your total number of push-ups up beyond that for the day. Let's say you get 15 to 20 to 25 total for the day, not at one time. And then you progressively get now I can do 8 push-ups at one time. Now I can do 10 push-ups at one time. And you just try to build incrementally over a period of time to eventually you reach your goal. And You know, in Chase's instance of holding his plank, last year was 1:47, was everything he had. You know, we worked on that, and now he's up to 5.5 minutes total. So, you know, this concept can be applied across, you know, a lot in the strength training world. It really comes back to science and how the body responds to stress. Yeah, really cool to see some of the kids knocking off some of their goals so far this year.
Yeah. Tyler, speaking of that on the physical side, but why is it important that they have those goals on the physical side? And hopefully, you know, they understand that as well.
Yeah, I think, you know, for us, it gives perspective. And I really like it because, you know, you might struggle with certain things like a push-up. You know, we assume push-ups are easy. Push-ups are not easy. And then when done correctly, they're pretty difficult. But it can really show the development, the maturation of the athlete, you know, from developing core strength to, you know, also psychologically, you know, as Dr. Brant will talk about a little bit later, you know, feeling really strong and building some confidence. We know confidence is the key to success, right?
Yeah, you know, those small victories really help a lot. But tying it also back to the golf side of things is really important, and they understand that fundamentally that this is important for what they're trying to do on the golf side.
I mean, essentially, right, things like push-ups might reflect the ability to, you know, neurologically connect the core and things like that. So, you know, although in the gym we're being athletes first, you know, all of these tests that these athletes go through absolutely reflect what we're trying to get them to be going through with their mechanics.
Yeah, that's great. And so, Dennis, leading, you know, kind of going to that side of it and understanding, and when the athletes come to you and understanding, you know, what it is they want to do or what they want to accomplish based on a goal. Maybe it's a score, maybe it's I want to get up and down more often, maybe I want to just hit it further. You know, that has a big impact on probably your coaching methodology, what you're going to be doing with them.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it really is the starting point. Their goals, understanding them, like we talked about 3 weeks ago, reverse engineering those goals, and then, you know, as we'll talk about here in a bit, just bringing it all the way back to short-term goals. And really those physical goals are really the lead factors, I think, that support, you know, the improvement in your movement, and then ultimately being able to control the golf ball better and you know, shoot lower scores. So, yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned a little bit earlier about the, you know, kind of the strengths and weakness analysis. So let's bring in, you know, Dr. Brant. Dr. Brant, welcome to the show this evening.
Thank you so much, Roger.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dennis. Thanks, Tyler.
So it's been a while since you guys have heard that, and you got the assignment to go work on those and do an analysis on yourself. Maybe we need a friendly reminder of what that was all about.
Yeah, so it's great to hear you guys talking about goal setting, right? Really important. So let's step back 3 weeks ago and talk a little bit about why we even set goals in the first place. You can see up on the screen, I am a clinical psychologist, so I know about Freud and Carl Jung, and one of my favorite quotes to talk about, especially when we're talking about personal development or goal setting, is this great one by Carl. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it faith, right? So unless we grow our awareness of what's going on in our brains or with our bodies or our thinking, anything that's going on, we'll never be able to really develop enough sense of what to do to work on it, right? So why is this important to my off-season training, right? Most of the behavior that happens on a day-to-day basis, when I talk about behavior, I'm talking about thinking, feeling, doing, right? Most of that happens outside of our conscious awareness. And that makes sense. We can't be aware of how to regulate our heart rate. We can't be aware of how we're walking. But if we're trying to develop a skill like hitting a golf ball, it's really important to understand what are the different components that go into it. And so we need to make that unconsciousness, we have to bring that to consciousness, and we do that through awareness. So really important. The best way to do that, one of the simplest way to do that is step back and look at a strength and weakness analysis, right? So what we've been doing, as Dennis was saying, we just really ask kids, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What do you think you need to work on to improve? What have you been doing well? Importantly, the positives are good, and we can talk about that maybe on another episode a little bit later in the show too. But most great athletes will work on their weaknesses. So really we want to focus on what's not working and develop a plan to work on it. Another really cool thing, just one thing to finish up, one of the really cool things that we do here is we get kids to ask other people too. It's not just self-reflection. We want them to talk to their coaches, to their friends, their playing partners, their teammates as well.
Yeah, and speaking of that, and I think that's one of the things. Now, outside of golf, you know, what you do in your daily life does affect what you're doing when it comes to whatever endeavor you have,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
So are we talking also about the outside stuff too? Like, you know, hey, I'm at school, I'm at home, and, you know, do I kind of reflect and kind of do I have enough awareness of what's going on there too? Am I bringing that baggage to my golf goals? You know, how do I, you know, work on that? Is that something you're also kind of looking at as part of this too?
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to look at it. We'll actually talk about it. It's, you know, some of the things you asked me to consider for the show is what are some of these off-season goals, and thinking not just about golf, but thinking about what are the other things that are getting in the way of my life.
Yeah.
And listen, goal setting is nothing, it's not something new or extraordinary, or you do it all the time, right? It's something we do every day. Goal-directed behavior is what's kept our species alive forever. What we're talking about here is really starting to identify specifically what goals are going to be meaningful to my development as a person. And in our case, at GPC, we're really focusing not just on outside stuff, but golf as well too.
Yeah, Dennis, on that side of things, you know, as you're going through this goal setting with the players, you know, what are some of the things that are coming up that you can identify, you know, that players are talking about? Are there commonalities there that you see for junior golfers?
Yeah, I mean, there's some common goals. Like, obviously, a lot of them want to increase their club head speed and things like that, and that's all relevant. I think some of the things we've seen over the years, and, you know, it speaks to, you know, some of the platform here, the process of SMART goals that Dr. Brant talks about. Definitely goals that are not specific enough. That's something that we've seen quite a bit. You know, I think specific goals really kind of provide a lot of energy or bring a lot of focus into your practice when you're really working towards something specific, maybe a specific time frame, and maybe even a specific tournament that you want to win or finish top 5. So I think that has a lot of power. We've definitely seen that lacking a lot. You know, measurable, you know, I think just not, you know, really taking the time to understand that, okay, here's where I am, here's my baseline. Okay, what would be a good benchmark in a certain time frame? So a lot of times they don't really attach that measurement or, you know, that goal you know, in some time frame. So those are two big things I think that we see a lot.
Yeah, so speaking of that, and you're looking at juniors and they're going through this process, now you got to know where they are. So obviously tournaments, you know, from the season, then your PDI or testing, all of that goes into helping them also understand where they are with this, correct?
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, you know, that strengths and weakness analysis, you know, so stats from playing is a key way to inform yourself about your strengths and weaknesses. Doing the PDI full assessment is another great way, because that's, you may find out, you know, putting is a weakness on the course, but, you know, the PDI really kind of parses it more and really looks at very specific skills. So it's 123 shots total. So both those things, along with what Dr. Brant said about asking, you know, colleagues and coaches and getting feedback from people, when you put all that together, you have a lot of information about strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah. So with that being said, let's get into, you know, kind of what you want to talk about when it comes to SMART goals and how do we set those and how do we approach that. So why don't we go ahead and go through that process?
Yeah, for sure. And again, a review from a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
When we talk about setting SMART goals, we use that acronym. And again, nothing new. SMART goals have been around. We really want people to identify specific goals that are well defined and clear. If the goal is vague, if it's ambiguous, if it's unclear, right, you're not going to have something to really focus and concentrate on. It has to be measurable. It has to be something you can quantify, something, right, like push-ups, like Tyler was talking about. What is your baseline? How do you know you're improving? It has to be something attainable, you know, realistic, reasonable, right? Something you don't, obviously, if you're someone who has only played in 3 tournaments as an amateur, you're not going to say that you're going to win the Masters, right? That's not a realistic or reasonable goal. It also has to be relevant. One of the great things about taking the time to set, to identify strengths and weaknesses, to set SMART goals, to do PDI, is you can really identify, and I think in a meaningful and efficient way, what do I need to work on to improve? Right? If you don't take the time to do that, you're not going to develop relevant goals, right? If you want to work on swing speed, maybe the best thing to do, you know, isn't to do push-ups. Maybe there's another thing unique to you that might be more helpful in that. So really identifying what is a relevant goal to my development. Of course, being time-bound, the more we can kind of give ourselves a set period of time to accomplish the goal, it motivates us. And then probably the most important thing, and we talk about this all the time, Roger, is this idea of resistance. It's one thing to set a goal, it's another thing to follow through with it, but most importantly, what is the resistance? What it might get in the way? Right. And if we can start to anticipate the resistance, right, we can make that transition into that development much easier, knowing what those obstacles that are going to get in the way.
Yeah, I'm going to go right to that point, because I think that's what a lot of young players and even parents out there don't recognize, is that resistance that's in the way. And it may not be resistance in the sense of a mental resistance. It could be really the physical environment you're in, or maybe it's I don't have the tools, or whatever that resistance is. And I think that is so important. Maybe it's the coaching you have around you, or teaching, or whatever it may be, is that you're not identifying that resistance well enough to make it easier to reach your goals. And not that all goals are easy, but
that's right.
you want to really set yourself up for success versus that failure.
Yeah, and sometimes the gold is in identifying the resistance. Right. Right. When you know what's getting in the way, that actually can help guide and help you redefine a more effective goal. So really paying attention to, and most people get stopped by resistance, but I would invite everybody out there to think of resistance as probably your best classroom to develop.
Yeah, actually, we were having an interesting conversation with one of our junior players today, and we were talking about some of the things that he wanted to try to achieve in his golf swing, and his resistance was maybe it was a misunderstanding, or maybe he just didn't realize, what he was really trying to do, and that really sets him on a different pathway.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the resistance can definitely come in many forms. I think he was open in some respects, but I think as we got a little bit deeper into it, some of the specifics, he resisted whether he could do that, or whether he understood it in that way, and why didn't he? So I know, what I think I've learned here, and just reflecting in the last few years, is resistance is guaranteed, right? We know that it's going to come in all kinds of, everybody's going to have it in different forms, and you can either run from it, or you can I think go through it and utilize it to your benefit. So obstacles away.
Obstacles Away. That's a great book. I love that. Yeah. So, speaking of resistance, you think about the kind of the fight or flight rules, if you will. In golf, there's a lot of that, right? It's I'm afraid of the outcomes before I get started, or Coach Dennis says I need to do this, and all of a sudden, again, that's, do I want to go in and fight that, or do I want to just walk away and say I'm not changing anything? So, but what does that really mean? So talk to us about what is, what's that mean? What does fight or flight mean, and what state am I in when I'm kind of thinking that way?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you asked, because one of the assignments you gave me this week was to identify some of the key fundamentals that people need to work on mentally in the off season. So I promise I'll get to that answer in a second. But great question, right? Because so much, again, this goes back to that question that we were talking about earlier, that so much of our behavior is out of our conscious awareness. Well, our body really guides a lot of what we do. And if we are feeling threat or fight or flight, a lot of other things happen that we're not aware of. And that'll be one of the goals I'll ask people to work on in the off season too.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So speaking of off-season, fundamentals, what are we talking about?
Yeah, so obviously everybody is different, right? Everybody, if I asked everyone in the audience, I asked everybody here, what are your strengths and weaknesses? We're all going to come up with different things. Maybe when we rank order them, some might put one thing above the other. A lot of kids, when we did the strength and weaknesses analysis with them last week, right, they were talking a lot about the ability to focus, concentrate, getting frustrated. Everybody's different. So you gave me the assignment. I came up with I think 4 really kind of fundamental psychological skills that I think everyone could benefit from working on in the off season. If you can see up there on the screen too, I would say developing self-awareness, huge. Learning to purposely focus your attention, really important. Learning to breathe. I know that sounds silly, but the way we breathe has a really big effect on how we feel, how we think. And then practicing positive self-talk. I would say those are kind of 4 fundamental ones that I think every human could work on those too, not just golfers.
How does the breathing help? I know we talked a little bit beforehand. It was really interesting how the nervous system works. I don't know if we're jumping ahead here.
Yeah, we're jumping ahead.
Okay.
We'll get there. Okay. Again, Greg, I'm glad. See, Dennis wants to know. That's good. Yeah, you'll get there.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, let's start with self-awareness.
Yeah.
I love definitions. I think it's really important in communication for everybody to know what we're talking about. So when we talk about self-awareness, right, it's one of those kind of fluffy terms that you hear about in psychology and stuff. But really all it means is being aware, right, consciously aware of one's thoughts, feelings, behaviors, motives, and desires. Right? It's being consciously aware of that. So why is that important? Well, just like confidence is the key to success, I'm going to tell you awareness is the key to change. If you can't grow your awareness of something, you'll never be able to change it. So self-awareness, hugely, hugely important. Again, not just in golf, but everywhere in your life. So being able to identify what's working, what's not working, what your tendencies are, how you think, how you feel, how you react, what motivates you, really, really important. I also promised in my own reflection on some of these episodes, I want to give the golfers too, how does this help my golf game? Mm-hmm. Well, it's really, really important to work with accurate information. Right? So many times in golf, we think we know what's happening, and we start to take action on that. Whether it's like thinking you're doing something with your swing, when in fact you get yourself on video and it's something totally different. So growing self-awareness, really important, gives us that ability to work with accurate information. Also importantly, you learn to recognize how you're getting in your own way. You start through self-awareness, through bringing some of this unconscious stuff to consciousness, you really start to develop really your own coach, which is the third thing there that it can help your game. But you can really recognize how you're getting in your own way.
Yeah.
Really important.
Yeah, I want to kind of stop you right there because you mentioned something that I thought was really relevant to the golf audience. And, Jack Grout, who's Jack Nicklaus's longtime coach and is early on, and he mentioned a lot of times and very often saying, Jack's awareness was so keen, and that was why he thought he was, the best player, on the planet. But it was also that when he's playing golf, he had an awareness of what was happening so he can correct it. And I think that's really important to kind of understand that too.
Yeah, right. I think you could make the argument that the best athletes, the best golfers are the ones who are more aware of what's happening, right? Everything from their own experience to external. Hugely, hugely important to be able to develop that skill.
Yeah, actually just heard him talking about the shot where he hit the flag on the 17th in the 1972 U.S. Open at Pebble Beach. He hit a 1-iron into the wind, hit the flag. He said, he felt he took his swing back to the inside, so he made a mid-swing adjustment in the downswing, and he kind of held on, and he hit the flag, and the rest is history. But pretty amazing.
Yeah, right. So to be able to sense that, right, to have that information and to make use of that in one, half a second, that's pretty remarkable. So, but that's the great thing about self-awareness is, right, you're gathering information. The brain loves to be informed. The more information we have, the more predictable the world becomes. So it's a great skill. How do you practice it? Right? Pretty simple. Pay attention to your internal dialogue. It's not something that we always take the time to do. You talked about, is this something that kids can do outside of golf? Sure, right? Pay attention to how you're thinking, how you're feeling. Why are you reacting to certain situations? One of the simplest things that you can do is just pay attention to that internal dialogue. Rather than being reactive to situations, try to pause and be more proactive, be more reflective. Right? To that end, right? Lean into discomfort. Right? Take risks. Put yourself in situations that are going to challenge you so that you do have to reflect. You do have to see, what happens when I do this. When I joke with my wife sometime about anger practice, right? Sometimes I find myself getting angry more out of curiosity, just to better understand like how my brain works. So lean into discomfort. Do things that you wouldn't normally do. Whether it's public speaking or signing up for a tournament you might not want to, you're too nervous about playing with, or ask a playing partner that's better than you to challenge them to a match. So really put yourself in situations that are going to call on you to be uncomfortable. The other side benefit of that is, right, adversity is another kind of fundamental happening in golf. You're always going to be, something's going to happen that's going to go wrong in golf. So learning how to be okay with that situation and still be able to make an accurate assessment, really important. Take notes, journal, right? Before a round, after a round, daily, right at the end of the day. Really reflect on what you're thinking and feeling. There's no better way to develop, I think self-awareness by reflection, and journaling, note-taking is a wonderful way to do it. What happened in the situation? What are my tendencies?
Yeah. I think that's gold there, those 4 bullet points. We spend a lot of time and energy trying to help our juniors get into that type of practice or deep practice, and I think those are really good.
Yeah, I kind of, as you were talking, I was thinking about Mac O'Grady, and there's been many, many stories on Mac O'Grady. When he's preparing for a Q school or a tournament, he'd get in his car in rush hour traffic in LA, and see how he handled that adversity, or how he handled that frustration, and it was very interesting how he came back with notes of hey, I felt this while I'm sitting there, or this happened, and how that helped him in his development. And I think that is key, I think, for all of us to do that in all walks of our life, to kind of experience those things.
Yeah, the more comfortable we can get with being uncomfortable, I think the more efficiently we will move through the world. And guess what? I think you'll play better golf too. Pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Dennis, you see a lot of that with the players as you go out, especially these young juniors playing in tournaments, a lot of times first-time tournaments, in how they're so unaware of themselves, and then you try to get back to them and say, hey, what'd you learn from the event? And a lot of times they're almost like clueless.
Yeah, absolutely. That happens a lot. That's actually why you got me a good camera, so we're actually filming them at tournaments now, just so we can come back and kind of ask them what's their routine, or what was their experience, and then we can actually show them some shots and going through their routine and the discrepancy between what they think they might have done from pre-shot to post-shot, and then obviously we'll film in between how they're walking, what kind of pace are they walking with, so just to kind of help them develop that awareness.
Yeah, because they might not know. Right?
Yeah.
They literally might not know. That might be because they haven't developed that skill of self-awareness, or it might also be circumstances. They might be nervous, scared, right? And that definitely gets in the way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Learn to purposely focus your attention.
I thought that was another really, really important one. I can't think of any other sport, especially given the static nature of golf, where we can be so distracted by so many different things and then be kind of called into action in this really meaningful way. So there is a skill of being able to concentrate, to focus, to purposely focus your attention. It's really easy to focus your attention if someone calls your name, right? Because you automatically are trained to attend to that. But when it comes to the performing of a specific behavior, right, you need to be able to know how to lock in during that time. And when I say why is it important, well, your target is not always what you think it is, and you need to know what you're aiming at to be successful. Again, getting back to self-awareness, getting back to a lot of this unconscious behavior, we want to be able to make our experience on the golf course intentional, purposeful, and focused. Right?
Yeah.
We don't want to be guessing. So the better we can get at focusing our attention purposefully, I have no doubt that that's going to lead to being more successful. Right? It helps us. How does it help my golf game? Right? Grounded in the present. Right? It helps us stay grounded when we're focused on the task at hand. Right? It keeps us grounded in the present. It prevents us from being distracted by any external factors at all. And we hear all the time, one shot at a time mentality. Well, I will promise you, if you reflect on the times you've played your best golf, you've been in that state of mind where you've been hyper-focused. It's one shot at a time. You're grounded in the present. Paying attention in the moment, which is pretty much the definition of mindfulness, is one of the easiest ways for us to practice it. It gets such a bad rap because it's often accused of being kind of fluffy or hippie or something where people don't take it seriously. But how do you practice focusing? Focused meditation, right? One of the best, there's a million apps out there. The one, and we have no connection with Headspace. It's one that I personally like. A really, really good app to learn how to practice to meditate. And if it helps, right, don't think of meditation as something kind of like fluffy. Think of it as actually concentration practice, right? I would even encourage people to, most focused meditation practices focus on breathing. You could actually put a golf ball in the middle of a room and simply see if how long you can actually maintain purposeful focus and attention on that. Notice where you go. See if you can bring yourself back.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. And another way to work on it, right? Think of daydreaming as your classroom, right? Notice how many times during the day you're sitting here. Maybe even you're at home listening to me jabber on, right? You've noticed your attention drifting. See if you can bring yourself back. So many times during a given day, we drift off, we daydream. There is a skill to being able to bring yourself back. So look for those moments in your day-to-day activity where you do drift off and then bring yourself back. And if you're able to do that, I promise you it's going to help you focus on the golf course.
Yeah, and again, all of this information is going to be available to you on the juniorgolfhub.com in the library. So you're not going to miss anything. So, because I was daydreaming there, so I was just kind of bringing myself back. You know, so I was just letting you know.
And it's great, because one of the reasons I made these slides, I know it's a lot of information, but I want you to be able to go back and press pause and take some notes. Because it's a lot of information, and it's I think it's really meaningful information too.
I love that your target is not always what you think it is. I mean, you can think about, it's basically, you don't really, your attention should be on the target, like the flag, but it could be on just, I don't want to make a fool of myself. It could be on all kinds of things, right? I mean, that's basically, I think, what you mean by that.
Yeah, and can you be aware of that? And then do you have the skill to bring yourself back to your intention?
Right.
Yeah. That water hazard in front of us.
That's right.
Tight pen. Yeah, we've all been there. We've all kind of experienced that and dropped it in the water and then learned from it. So yeah, really cool. One of the things I really like too, when I know like, it doesn't look like it. I do run on the treadmill some, and there's a dot on the wall, and I like get on this dot, and I see that as a tunnel that I run through, and how long I can focus on that little dot. So that helps eliminate the pain probably.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's distracting. It keeps you focused, right? It takes your attention away from the pain.
Yeah.
If you really cool, if you ever done it, right? When you're stretching, if you did a quad stretch and you were standing up on one leg, oftentimes we feel out of balance. If you stare at a spot on the floor, it instantly refocuses you. So purposeful focused attention can really have an impact on performance.
I saw you running this morning. You were going hard. I was going 12 miles an hour, right?
Yeah. On the railroad tracks until the light came and wiped me out. So anyway, learn how to breathe. Talk to us.
Yeah. So again, I apologize for the slide, but this is one of those skills that people really underestimate, right? So
would you give us an exercise? Maybe give Dennis an exercise on how to breathe. Right?
Yeah, we'll give it to him. I get there, right? How to practice it for sure, right? So the mind follows the breath. I've done some yoga in my life, and I'll never forget one day a teacher said that, and it's really powerful. When we breathe as if we are stressed, right? The way that we breathe, our mind thinks we are stressed. When we breathe as if we are relaxed and focused, our mind becomes relaxed and focused. So learning how to breathe in a way that is conducive to, right, this calm, focused state is invaluable to all athletes, right? So why is this important and how can it help my golf game? Well, I intentionally made this a little confusing, right? Reduces the impact of the sympathetic response on performance. Well, what does that mean, right? Well, if you look over on the other side of the screen, you'll see the parasympathetic benefits. So your nervous system has a division of it called the autonomic nervous system. The sympathetic response is fight or flight. The parasympathetic response is rest and digest. So we're either in one or the other. It actually is physiologically impossible to be relaxed and anxious at the same time. So if you're in one state, you're not in the other, right? So if you notice that you're in a stress state, which often happens to golfers, right? Again, there's always adversity out there. There's always concern about looking good. There's always concern about outcome, right? That often can evoke a stress response, which can have a profound negative impact on our performance. So when we learn to breathe in a way, right, it's called coherent breathing, when we learn to breathe in a way that is consistent with a parasympathetic state, that rest and digest, it's pretty amazing what shows up. It doesn't just affect our nervous system, right, which really what it does is it deactivates the nervous system, but you can see that list of positive things that happen as a result of being in that parasympathetic state. I know it's a lot of big words, but you can reflect there and see on the side, but just some pretty amazing things, right? Increased self-efficacy. When I am in this relaxed state, I feel more confident in my ability to perform a task, right? Pretty powerful stuff. So,
Yeah.
Awesome.
you want to give it a shot?
I think
Am I
we
gonna
should.
pass
Maybe,
out?
maybe the audience give it a shot.
Yeah, it's actually, if you're a stressed person,
Yeah.
if you're someone who is on the go, a type A personality, this exercise is actually really challenging. So yeah, I invite everybody to do it. It's not easy to do.
Okay.
So what should we do?
It's real simple. So sit upright, right? A good way to do it is to put, when we're breathing in kind of this anxious fight or flight state, we breathe through our chest.
Okay.
So we really want to try to focus our attention on our abdomen. There's other techniques that think it can be a little higher, but really we want to breathe from our bellies, right? We want to breathe from our abdomen. So sometimes it's helpful just to take a few practice breaths before we actually do the exercise, right? So you can breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth, and just feel your belly fill, not your lungs, but feel your belly fill.
Watch out, a button might pop off and hit
That's
the camera.
Right. That's right. I feel the same way. All right, cool. All right, so now that you've got that, the ideal, right, is a 5-second inhale with a slight pause, and then a 5-second exhale with a slight pause, and then you repeat the cycle, okay? So 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out. You also want it to be smooth and rhythmic. Really important. So ready? Let's give it a shot, Dennis. So 5 seconds in. I'll count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You will repeat that cycle. It's a lot harder than you think.
I feel calm already.
It's pretty
Yeah.
amazing. The more you practice that, right, you can actually get there in a few breaths.
Yeah.
So again, I use it all the time. You're standing on a tee and you've made some shot important and you start to feel the effects of that importance. I take 3 breaths and it settles me right down. So really, really, really powerful. I couldn't encourage people more to practice breathing because it's one of these no-brainer things. It's really simple to do. If you breathe this way, you will deactivate the stress response. It's just guaranteed. It just happens automatically.
So what you're saying is, I just made a quad, and if I do this breathing technique, it'll eliminate my need to throw a club.
It might. You have to be open to the possibility
All
that the anger at making the quad was irrational to begin with. So, yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
This leads me to practice positive self-talk because my game is garbage.
Yeah. And this also leads to the pop quiz question too, right? So, positive self-talk. Why do we practice it? Why is it important? Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So just as much as the mind follows the breath, right? Thoughts have a pretty impactful power on us as well. So if we're thinking negatively, right? Oftentimes the world becomes negative, right? If we're thinking positively, the world also becomes positive. So positive self-talk, it helps with belief, it helps with confidence, it helps with optimism, right? Really, really important things in order to be successful, right? Probably confidence, as we say here, right? It might be the most important variable. So the more you can practice positive self-talk, I don't like the words of positive and negative because they often convey judgment. So if it helps to say motivational self-talk or optimistic self-talk, other ways to do it. How to practice it, right? Own your strengths. Be proud of that, right? So in the strengths and weaknesses analysis we do with the kids, we don't just ignore the strengths, right? We use those strengths to really celebrate and be proud of the strengths of that kid. And it might be, I'm a really good putter, or my mental game is rock solid. Those can be turned into positive self-talk. So going out on the golf course, Tyler and I were talking the other day about his experience playing with his dad, and he said he probably played with the most negative guy he's ever played, and it was miserable, right? It was miserable for Tyler and his dad, but I can't imagine it wasn't miserable for the guy as well. Negativity surrounds the golf culture pretty much anyway. But so own your strengths, believe in your abilities out there, and you can fake it a little bit too. right? As long as you understand the purpose of it is to start to celebrate and be proud of kind of the accomplishments and what you're good at, right? Always reframe the negative. If you catch yourself being negative, see if you can say, okay, here's why I'm doing that. I'm being negative because that's my tendency. I'm really hard on myself, but I know that if I continue to be negative, that's not going to allow me to be my best. So I'm gonna work on that, right? That's a way to reframe that. This is a hard one, right? If I were Tyler and his dad, I probably wouldn't play with that guy again. If it was bringing down my performance.
Right.
Pay attention to who you surround yourself with in your life, right? Because the people you surround yourself with in your life are going to have an effect on you. So if you have negative people that you play with who are really self-critical, that, by the way, that's not just on the course, that's off the course as well too.
Yeah.
But making sure you surround yourself with people who inspire and support you and are proud of your accomplishments in the same way that you are. Again, another way to practice that positive self-talk. And again, I know it sounds cheesy, but be kind to yourself, right? Really, really important to see moments of difficulty. This is lean into the discomfort. This is adversity. See those as opportunities to learn and grow, not as an opportunity to beat yourself up. So I want to get to those two quotes because I think they're pretty cool in a second. But yeah. What do you got?
Who said the quote?
Do we want to know? Do I got to tell? Yeah, it's Henry Ford.
There you go.
Yeah, the Ford Motor Company.
Henry Ford.
Cool.
Got it.
Yeah, so
Well,
whoever
do you think
got
you
that.
can or think you can't? You're right.
Yeah.
That's Henry Ford. Wow.
That's a Henry Ford quote. Yeah.
Learn something every day.
Yeah.
Be open to learning.
So I don't know how open people are, but check out just saying out loud, I am powerful beyond measure. And see the effect that has on you, right? Even though I know, what kind of the exercise, I can feel what that impact has on me. I am powerful beyond measure, right? So could be corny, but I promise you, when you start to practice more self-talk, it will influence the way that you think and feel and behave. And the reason I added watch this too is I think it was Debbie Cruz, who also does some sports psych research. She if I'm remembering right, she wrote this cool paper and asked the golfers that she was working with to just kind of think this before they struck a golf ball, right? So they're standing on the course and they say, watch this. Like in an excited, like watch this. I'm going to hit the coolest shot. Watch this. And she noticed again their performance skyrocketed. So positive self-talk, I get that it sounds cheesy, but it really can have an important effect. And also it's going to increase your overall enjoyment of your experience. You're going to want Tyler and his dad to play with you, and you're going to like.
Always a treat.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And you're going to enjoy your experience more too. So. Those are the 4 fundamentals that I think everyone can work on this offseason.
Yeah, I tell you, Dr. Brant, that was a lot, and that was fantastic. Some great takeaways there for everyone in the audience, and obviously here as well. I mean, learn something new every day when we're in touch.
And I apologize for the slides, but it's so important. I want you guys to go and be able to hit pause and reflect on that stuff too. So.
That's great information.
Awesome.
Don't apologize.
Yeah.
We love it.
Yeah, cool.
Really
be
good.
kind to yourself on that.
I should be kind of. You're right. Good point.
Dennis,
I am powerful beyond measure.
You are powerful. What'd you measure on your 5-10-5 or your broad jump?
I don't know what I got. I wasn't. I promise it wasn't as far as I had hoped.
Hey, I like that. Not as you hoped. Okay,
that's
good.
right.
That's good. But we hear the other side of that, right? We hear on the golf side is like, man, I suck. My game's terrible. I mean, how do you deal with that as a coach and performance coach? What do you say to the players?
Yeah, I mean, they got to understand where they are. Obviously, we like to use the assessment outside of tournament competition, just seeing where the skills are. Obviously, we have a lot of casual rounds and just informing themselves about what the reality is. But we can see it both ways. Maybe that false confidence, but we do see a lot of dejection and I suck and things like that when the skills are actually pretty good. And if you could just get in a better mindset more consistently, you might have better results in tournaments. So we just try to show them with all the measurements we do that the reality is the skills are pretty good. So you shouldn't be beating yourself up so much.
Yeah, or maybe you didn't play as well as you'd like, but what'd you learn? And those are part of this experiences that you want to take away from that.
Yeah. I also think one of the things, again, that I love about this place is we're also starting to teach the kid the skill of self-awareness to recognize that negative self-talk real or not, right? Just thinking that way will in fact deteriorate their performance. So they can own it however they want, but just simply knowing that if I keep beating myself up, I'm not going to play as well. That actually helps with the adolescent mind, where it's more concrete thinking anyway. Just knowing that that's a skill that they can develop has also been helpful.
Love it. That was, again, great information and great talk tonight. So, Andrew, we have some questions tonight?
Yes, we do have a couple of questions. The first is, I've set goals before and struggled. Why is it so hard to change?
Yeah. You want me to take that?
Great question. I think since you're here, and Tyler's at home eating.
Yeah, that's right. We are, as humans, we fundamentally, even neurologically, we are wired to take the path of least resistance. Right? Anytime we ask ourselves to change, we're kind of butting up against habits. We're getting up, habits of behavior, habits of thought. It is really, really hard to do something different, and that's why it's really important to set these goals. Right? Setting these goals can help with accountability. Surrounding yourself with an environment that can also hold you accountable will help you get past that resistance. But fundamentally, like welcome it. Again, the obstacle is the way. Expect the resistance. It is hard. Changing is hard. But if you set those goals, you surround yourself with the right people in the right environment, you will push through.
And our next question is, do you have any more resources on how to do a strengths and weaknesses analysis and to set SMART goals?
Yeah, I'll take this one too. So one of the things that we're going to do in the next couple of weeks, we're going to put up, if you join the hub, there will be a link to a very specific walkthrough to take you not only through the strengths and weaknesses analysis, but it'll take you through SMART goal setting, and it'll also take you through how to develop kind of meaningful, personal, positive self-talk as well.
Great. And before we get to the pop quiz winner, I just wanted to share one very nice comment from the YouTube chat. And this is from Casey Schweitzer. And it says, love this talk on positive self-talk because this is great advice for everyone, whether they play golf or not.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Thanks, Casey.
Yeah, thank you.
And the winner of tonight's pop quiz is Mike Collin.
All right. Nice. Way to go. Glad you got that answer. And that's going to conclude our show this evening, content-wise. Next week, off-season nutritional planning. So we're really excited about having Kyle Panic on, who's going to talk more about that nutritional planning and what you need to do to keep yourself healthy, get strong, kind of like DeChambeau getting big.
Yeah.
Maybe that's going to be one of those things. So I'm looking forward to that. Not that I need to get any bigger, but anyway, always thank you to the sponsors, Junior Golf Hub. Make sure to download that app. Get those coaches in your pocket, find that perfect spot for you, that fit in college. Also, take that self-assessment. It's going to be a great place for you to start and maybe understand some of these things. And again, as Dr. Brant just said, maybe find his questionnaire there on positive self-talk and on all the strength and weaknesses analysis. So that's there as well. And also Ethan Allen Preparatory, always achieving your greatness in the classroom, in the golf course, on the golf course, and in life. And speaking of Ethan Allen Preparatory, we've got a great fireside chat tonight at 7 p.m. Hopefully you tune in. So hopefully we'll see you there. And as always, make sure you go out there and get after it and enjoy your journey. Thanks so much.